Trial Lawyers University, where the Titans come to train. Produced and powered by LawPods.
All right, so we got Ed Ciarimboli here today, and Ed and I have been knowing each other quite some time, and we just got to see each other in New York City about, 2 weeks ago, Ed?
Yeah, it was a blast. New York, I thought that the program was fantastic in New York. You did a great job.
Well, thanks. It was my first time in the Big Apple, and now you never really understand when people say, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere, until you try to go to New York and do something and realize how difficult it is. And not just like the hotel and the facilities, but the people there in general are very interesting people. I mean, they're, because like they don't really go to conferences. Like they're not like,
Right.
on the West Coast, we're like, hey, let's go to a conference. This is going to be a great time. We're going to, see our friends and learn something new. A lot of folks in New York, or on the East Coast, they don't really go to conferences. So it's, people are like, you shouldn't go there. It's a very hard place to do business. I'm like, well, maybe they don't know about how much fun conferences are. And if people don't come see them, they won't know. So maybe,
I think it was a blast. I think the whole thing went really well. And, thank you for having, me and my firm be part of it. And doing the boot camp in Central Park was a really good, really good time, as well. So, yeah, we enjoyed it.
good. I didn't know about that idea at first, but apparently a lot of people like to get up at 6 a.m. and go work out in Central Park in the fall. So that's a great
They
thing. I
do.
mean, it was great, opportunity to meet a lot of new folks and people that have things in common, get them together. That's always nice to do for create some community. So that's pretty cool. Well, and I'm glad you had a good time because I had a great time myself. And I got a lot more friends in New York and the East Coast now, which I'm really excited about because I really like New York a lot. So when you go there, it's good to have friends. And
Absolutely.
it's a good way to get started. So, Ed, you are also going out to Law de Gras next week, and we're going to see you there. And what are you teaching about
Yes,
out
sir.
there?
So doing a trucking panel, and my part of the panel is identifying who the players are in a trucking case. That has become one of the most difficult things in handling tractor trailer cases is finding the responsible parties or identifying all of the parties that are in a transportation cycle. I have a slide that I'm going to show, and that slide has 20 different entities that all could have a hand in moving a product from point A to point B, and then ultimately could be defendants in a particular case. So that's my little piece, and then we have Jordan Jones and Jay and Christina Hagan, all talking on some other aspects, and then I think at the end we're doing a little wrap up session in terms of just like some rapid fire trucking questions from the audience. So looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it too. It's a really fun conference, and Bob's a great guy, and he's got a great community
Yeah,
down there in San Diego. So I'm looking forward too because I love going to conferences, and especially ones I don't have to put on. I could just hang
yeah,
out
and
like at ATAA and socialize and have
yeah,
fun, which is fun. So Ed, how long you been a lawyer for?
23 years.
Amazing. She looks so young. Unbelievable. What was it? When you tell us about your epiphany that you woke up one day and said, I got to go become a lawyer or
Yeah,
whatever,
it's
however that
it's
happened.
kind of an interesting story because I wasn't going to be a lawyer. I went to Wilkes University and I was an engineering major. And my engineering discipline was, a cross between mechanical and materials engineering. My sophomore year of college, I started bartending, and I started bartending. Met my future law partner, his ex-wife, and he said, you really want to be an engineer?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm not really sure at this point because I had done an externship and I wasn't really in love with it." He was going to be going to law school, and he said, "Man, you should really think about law school." So right around the same time, I got involved with a charity organization, a local charity organization called Unico, which is an Italian charity organization. They do a lot of work for disabled kids. And there was a judge in there, Judge Gifford Cappellini, really terrific guy. And he said, "Why don't you come over in the summer and do an internship at the courthouse?" I said, "All right." So I went over to my university and I worked out that I got some credits, for doing it. And that was my first real exposure to the courtroom. And that summer, there was a murder trial. There were two lawyers from Philadelphia that were just outstanding, outstanding lawyers. And then there was also a civil case. And the civil case was a products liability case, and some very good lawyers in that as well. And I was fascinated. I was hooked. The judge, let me do let me sit in the courtroom for most of it. Let me go into chambers when he came in, when the lawyers came in. And it was really just an unbelievable experience. And so I went back to my university and I said, I think I want to go to law school. What do I need to do? And they said, well, anybody that goes to law school, they do a lot of writing, they do a lot of reading, which is the exact kind of opposite of what we do in the engineering world, right? And so I had a really cool guidance counselor at the time, and he said, "Look, I think that, I think you could do this." He said, "But I think it's gonna take some work." And so for the next 2 years, I basically went to school around the clock. I bartended, during the week and on weekends, and then I went to school, and I ended up graduating with a degree in engineering and applied science, and a degree in political science, and then ended up with a minor in physics. And that kind of started my path to law school. I then took a year and a half off and worked on getting ready for the LSATs, traveled a whole bunch, bartended, sold swimming pools. It was a really fun time. And then when I went to law school, I totally thought I was going to end up in either the patent world or the intellectual property world, because of my engineering background. And then that took a turn. That took a sideways turn as well. So that's kind of how I always say, I think that ultimately the law chose me. I didn't really. I kind of It was a process of elimination, kind of figuring out the things that I knew I never wanted to do, with my career, and kind of that hardcore engineering, being, in a manufacturing plant or being in a office like that. It just wasn't for me.
So you said your current law partner right now you met in
Oh
college?
yeah, yeah. No, no, no. Greg and I, Greg, and his ex-wife, we all bartended at the same bar, Market Street, Station Square in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and it was the mid '90s, and cocktail was all the rage, and so people always ask, they're like, "Did you?" Yes, I could flip bottles behind my back. I could flip bottles over my head. We used to do all that. We used to do
Dude,
all that
you
stuff. It was
you
a
need to
blast.
warm up your skills again. And in Huntington Beach, dude, you gotta be a guest bartender. Seriously, you should have a
Oh,
guest bartender. You should have a guest bartender stand. That would be fun. A little
I would
cocktail
do it. I
party.
would. I would absolutely, absolutely do it. Matter of fact, couple years ago, Greg and I actually did a charity event at a local bar, and it was unbelievable how many of our old friends came out, and we raised a ton of money for for a local kids charity, doing a quote unquote celebrity bartending. But we used
Quote
to,
unquote celeb.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Well,
yeah, quote unquote
wherever you
celebrity.
are must have been a pretty small place if you're a celebrity
Yeah.
bartender.
Well, it was, this club that we worked at, um, on Saturday nights. I mean, there would be 3,000 people there. There were like 6, 7 bars in it, and this place, it had live music. It had a DJ. It had a dance club as well, and the place was just jammed. I mean, absolutely, absolutely jammed. And we had a blast. I mean, we had an absolute blast. We always would joke that Greg and I did all the work. His ex-wife, who Tony, just stopped traffic pretty. She would make all the money for us, because guys would just come up and empty out their wallets for it. But no, we did that, and then I worked there, and then I ended up working bartending at a ski resort up in the Poconos during college, as well in the winter. But that's how Greg and I's relationship started. 26 years ago, and now it's still we still kind of have the same vision. It's just a bigger tip jar now.
So you met Greg before you went to law school.
Yeah, Greg's 8 years older than I am, so he had gotten his master's, and then he was bartending, and then going to be going to law school, and so he went to law school 2 years, yeah, 2 years before I did, and then then I started, and then after law school, he went to the DA's office. He was there for a couple years, full time, and then he went assistant, and then started a private practice. I came out of law school, and I started working for a personal injury firm for about 3 years, and then we had always talked about practicing together, and then we struck out on our own.
So you only had one job before your current partnership with Greg, and that was 3 years in a PI
That's it.
firm. Oh,
One
that's a
job.
well.
Yeah, one job. Yep. I've never done anything but litigation either. I did one pro bono family law case, and
Those are the worst.
well, not only it was the worst, but I won for this particular woman, and I'll never forget it. I came out and I said, "Hey, good news! I got you more time with your son. I've got this, and this." And she's like, "Yeah, but that's on a Thursday night, and I usually go out on Thursday nights." I'm like, "Wait a second. You told me to go in there and get you more time. I went in there and got you more time, and now you're telling me you don't want the more time?" I said, "You know what? This is not a world for me. Not a world for me." And that was the one and only, pro bono case that I ever did. But yeah, I've only ever done litigation, and then for about 8 years, I was the solicitor for mental health for three local counties, and I did mental health hearings, 302 commitments for 8 years,
So you're
which
trying
was
to get people
really
you were trying to get people institutionalized.
so. Yes and no. So there's a process. So my job was to make sure that their rights were being protected all on that process, and making sure that the 302 was done correctly, because some people very much needed to be in a facility in order to have their condition regulated, and then there were some people that didn't. And so my job on behalf of the county was to always make sure that whoever was the petitioner, that the I's were dotted, T's were crossed to the letter, because if they weren't, then the petition should be dismissed. So I did that for a better part of about 8 years.
Wow, that's a long time to deal with
Yeah,
that stuff. You probably
yeah.
learned a little.
It's still something that I'm on a board of the ARC, which is a national board. I'm on their local chapter, which deals with people that have mental illness, and it's certainly something that I'm still to this day very passionate about, and help out whenever I can, because I do think that in our society today, one, people who have mental illness are it's still very much a stigma, and it shouldn't be. And we have family experience with it, and I think that having gone through that as well, doing whatever we can to help out those that need that help is really important.
It is important. It's a good thing you're such a helpful person, Ed, because since you're not helping the mentally ill, well, maybe you are, because you do a lot of teaching. So I know a lot
I
of
do.
lawyers
I do.
could pass for some mental illness. This job can
Oh
drive you
yes.
nuts, but so it's good that you had all that all that preloading to deal with people with a lot of
Hmm.
issues to help, you know, You know what I'm saying? Because I know that you and
I
my
do.
buddy Philip, because you and my buddy Philip Miller, because you're even so insane. Are you writing a book? Is that
We are. We're writing. Yeah. So Philip and one of my mentors, Paul Scopter, a number of years ago, wrote Advanced Deposition Technique book. God, I'm going to say it's probably a dozen years ago now, at least. And so Paul passed away about 4 years ago, and Philip and I, have been teaching deposition skills all over the country for many, many years. And since that book was written a dozen years ago to now, so much has changed in the world of how we approach depositions, what we're doing with depositions, visuals that we're using in depositions, different techniques and principles. And so, we really felt it was necessary based on the work that we've done over the course of the last, 10, 12 years to update the book and put in some new and fresh content. And so that's what we're doing. I laugh because it has been the worst process of my entire legal career, writing a book, and it has just been. It was not at all what as glamorous as I thought it would be
what?
by
I
any
can't
stretch of the
imagine what you could think
imagination.
about. Writing a book could be glamorous.
Oh,
Maybe publishing the book, signing the book
I,
at
yeah,
at TLU, Las Vegas. When maybe that would be glamorous. But writing a book,
yeah.
I think we have a
Oh,
different idea of fun
Dan, I
or
tell you,
glamour.
no doubt. Like I had this vision, like I fly fish a lot. I have a fishing cabin. I had this vision of like going out to my fishing cabin, like scheduling a day and just sitting in like this idyllic, you know, setting with the river there and the trees and everything else and writing. Total bullshit. I would go out. I did it twice. I didn't write a word, not one word. I reorganized all the flies in my fly box the one day. The other day it was raining. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just split some wood. I mean, everything but sitting down. So but I learned, it's interesting because I learned something about myself in doing this. I realized that one of the reasons that I truly love A, teaching, and B, being a trial lawyer. And let me first start with being a trial lawyer because everything that I do is a collaborative process. I work with Philip, or I work with you, or working with my team, or whomever. It's a very collaborative process, and there's a lot of give and take and a lot of feedback, and I love that. And that's one of the things that you know being a trial lawyer, like I truly enjoy that. Now there are moments of solitude when you're getting ready for a deposition where you're kind of just dialed in, but then you're going and doing it, immediately thereafter, and there's an immediate feedback. And same with teaching and doing some of the consulting. You're helping somebody, and it's a collaborative process, trying to overcome or fix a issue or help somebody get better in trial techniques or skills or whatever it is. I love that. And then I realized writing a book, you're completely by yourself. There is no collaborative process. It is just you in a room writing, and then that's it. And then, like, you know what? We're going to do it because I think it's really important to give people an idea of what we've been doing the last 12 years since the original book came out and updating that content. But I'm I could pretty much say it's a one and done for me for sure.
I was going to ask you about, one of the most challenging time of your career, but it sounds like you're going through it with this book writing right now.
You know, I it's a good challenge to have. I would say the most challenging time though ever in my career up so far was Greg and I have been practicing probably about 3 or 4 years, and we just had this mentality like, work harder, make more money, work harder, make more money. And so, we invested a lot in our firm as much as we could, and we kind of positioned ourselves with some of the more established firms, and we started getting lots of cases, and more, we were growing and growing and growing, and more money was coming in, but we weren't making more money. And all of a sudden, we have all these cases, we had all this kind of staff, and we're running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you know something had to break, and we kind of like, I remember like we looked at each other like we got we got to figure this out. Like we're we are every day the phone's ringing off the hook. Great cases are coming in. We think we're doing good work, but yet our income was going this direction, not this direction. And so that was a really challenging time, and we made a very conscious decision at that point that we needed to. We were very good lawyers. We were terrible businessmen. I mean, just terrible, right? There was no policies or procedures or protocols or controls on expenses or anything like that. And so we decided that we were going to go out and hire at that point, we didn't realize we were going to hire a CFO. We were just hiring a consultant. And then our consultant, his name's Joe Shentz. He ended up becoming our CFO and has been our CFO now for the last, 15 some odd years. And that was, I think that was what started us. It is what started us on the trajectory that we're on now. And, figuring out, like, making sure that everybody stays in their lane. Joe kind of runs the financials and the day to day. I handle litigation. My partner does all of the kind of business, business day to day, and then handles all the political things that we need to do, which, as you know, are unfortunately a necessary evil in our business. But that was the most challenging part, because you look and you're like, you have this thought, well, just work harder, make more money, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, that doesn't work. It just wasn't working for us. So we really retooled, and we also realized that we couldn't be all things to all people. So we started to specialize a little bit more in areas of tractor trailer crashes and medical malpractice, and products liability, and it's kind of put us on the path that we're on now.
You spoke about like, because like working harder, because I used to work so hard as a criminal defense lawyer, and people think, oh, if you work hard, you'd be successful. Well, I mean, successful, like well off financially, but such nonsense. It's like, if you don't know what work you're to do, you could work and work and work, and just it's frustrating because you see, I remember being back in Michigan, being a criminal defense lawyer. I see all my friends doing really well financially, which, to me was like, $200,000 a year. I'm like, wow, if I could make that much money one day, that would be the, like all this suffering and, abuse I have to go through as a criminal defense lawyer from the clients and the judges and the system. I'm like, that'd be worth it. But until you figure out, how to actually make a living being a lawyer, it's not very fun. It's because it's hard work. Boy, all my friends and you, you guys work hard. I'm telling you, all that writing, it's boring stuff. And what I'm talking about, that boring writing.
Yeah.
Well, when you do publish your book, we're going to have a book signing tour at TLU. We're going to fill up I can picture it like a big 10-foot cover with your whatever's on the cover. Maybe I don't know. I can picture it.
Yes.
I can picture it. So we're going to be, it could be the first publication of TLU Press. You just never know. You just never know.
Well, and that it'll be well, and thank you, because writing it for TLU Press, I think, is a really cool thing. I mean, honestly, especially because what I think what you're doing with TLU is really elevating kind of the when I say education platform, meaning that it is truly about teaching and making lawyers better. And that's one of the things I know I really appreciate that you're doing. I know Philip does as well, and a lot of the other men and women that participate in the program. So I think it's really great, and honored to be part of it. To be honest with you.
Well, thanks. And you talked about teaching, because like, what do you like? I personally love teaching. I mean, I teach my boot camps and these little workshops, and like watching a lawyer transform in a short period of time, because people have no idea how hard it is to get up and present and connect and persuade. They think, oh, you went to law school. And so many people that went to law school, like, oh, I just got up there and be myself. I'm like, yeah, good luck with that one. It's like,
Well,
be yourself with a gun to your
yeah,
head. Be yourself.
yeah. It's
You know,
funny you
it's
say that because for years and years we used to do the ultimate for AAJ, and I remember it might have been Jim Lees who said it. He's a fabulous trial lawyer from West Virginia, and he said something along the lines of, "Now, really, I want you to be yourself, unless you're an asshole. If you're an asshole, don't be yourself, because nobody wants to hang out or be associated with an asshole." And I just remember that every time somebody says, like, just be yourself, and I'm like, eh, let's get to know you a little bit better before we actually say you should be yourself, because you just might not be the most likable person in the world, and that's fine. But let's figure out what parts of you can resonate with people and what parts of you actually do not resonate with people on any level at all. And so let's compartmentalize a little bit. So yeah, it's I know you enjoy teaching. I enjoy teaching, very much.
yeah. And so you're coming to Huntington Beach, California, which
Yes,
is
sir.
June 5th through 8th, 2024 at the Pasea. But you were there last year. And you and Philip taught a deposition class there. Is it?
We did,
So
and I loved it. I mean, it was, first of all, that Paseo Hotel's awesome. Huntington Beach is just totally fantastic. Really just a great location. Um, there's a little burger joint like right down the road. Man, it was just terrific spot. But so we basically did two days of workshops, and we did deposition skills. And we did a deep dive on kind of the first day on teaching people, you know, preparation. It's amazing to me still to this day how many lawyers like really have no concept or idea how to prepare the right way for a deposition. They just don't. I mean, they they have no idea what the elements of their case are. From a very foundational perspective. They have no idea what they want to get out of this particular witness or how this witness fits into their particular sequence or story. And so it's amazing when you sit down with lawyers and you're like, okay, all right, tell me about your case. And they tell you about your case and they say, okay, well, what are you going to do? Who's the first deposition you're going to take? And I'll just use for example, a trucking case. 95% of the lawyers that I talk to, they're like, well, I'm going to, go take the driver and the safety director. Well, yeah, but you do that in every case. Yeah, every case. But every case isn't the same. So don't you think we should sit and we should talk about whether it's appropriate to take the truck driver's deposition first, or the safety director, or the maintenance person, or the police officer who investigated the scene? Like, what is the essence of your case? And then at the end of the day, what dots are you going to need to connect to move the needle in your favor? Um, so that was, one of the components that we spent a lot of time on, and then starting to teach people techniques, exhaustion, summarization, boxing in, the Miller mousetrap. These are, concepts that are really are very foreign, to people. We've been doing a lot with clean language, which is, a really interesting type
give me
of
an example.
technique.
What's
Whenever
clean
you're
language?
So clean language was developed by a woman named Marion Way, and it's kind of a coaching and therapist type of questioning. And so let me give you an example. Like if you have you've been in a very significant automobile wreck, and I would say something along the lines of, what is it about that wreck that stands out or you remember, and you give a metaphor, right? And you say, it was like a bomb went off. So diving into those metaphors. So then the next aspect of that would be asking, it's a little bit odd saying it, but you say, and a bomb is like what? And it's amazing when you start to do that, the information that people give you, and when you look to see why they're saying, what is behind that saying, oh, it's like a bomb went off. And when you start to, and a bomb is like what? And it just keeps kind of going down that road, is like what? Is like what? Tell me more. What else? But really listening for those, for those metaphors and identifying them, and now being able to dive deeper into them. It's fascinating the information that we get, in a deposition. I just took one recently where the driver, he was a drunk. He was, you know, drunk driving a commercial motor vehicle, and he ran into the, back of our guy and very, very, very significantly injured him. And he said, it was the worst decision of my life. And that's a metaphor, right? And so I dug a little and said, and the worst decision is like what? And he said, well, I've done X, Y, and Z in my life, which were all bad, but this was even worse because, and then he went through all of these things that he did that day leading up to this crash. There was just a cascade of bad decisions that I would have never found that out if I just said, well, you know, tell me about the crash. Or, like went right to the, you made a bad decision to drink that day. But, I found out so much information that was so useful for putting our case together. It was unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. So that's one of the things like we've been working on, some, clean language and having people utilize that. And then visual aids, we have just been working so hard because now, I mean, it is an expectation whenever you're going into a courtroom that you're going to have a visual presentation. The days of the lawyer just being this unbelievable orator who's going to woo everybody and they're going to just, fall at his or her feet. Those days are long, long, long gone. In order to be persuasive and in order to, for a jury to remember something whenever they go into deliberate in your favor, you need to have a mental image that's connected with a particular topic or idea. And so we work very hard at creating those in depositions, laying the foundation for them so that you can then utilize them in trial. And Dan, that's the thing that has been, I think, especially at TLU, that's been really cool because we've done them live. Like for example, in New York, we had some woman come up and we said, just give us an idea about your case, and okay, we're gonna do a deposition. It was a hiring issue, and everybody else, it was very much a collaborative process, like letting her kind of struggle through creating this and everybody else pitching in because she had never tried it, she had never done it, and most lawyers have never done anything like that in a deposition. And so like when she all of a sudden she's like, oh my gosh, like this is great. Like when that light bulb went off, it really becomes very impactful and very powerful. And being able, those visuals, being able to distill large volumes of information into one slide or one yes no chart or one image, really, cool stuff.
Yeah. And so you're going to teach so in Huntington Beach, you're going to teach it. You and Philip are going to teach a day on these advanced deposition skills. And
Yep.
you're teaching another workshop out there. And what's that about?
Yeah, so you and I talked about this the other day. One of the things that is very prevalent in the trucking world right now are cases against Amazon. Uh, Virtually overnight, Amazon has become one of the biggest players in the transportation industry, from tractor trailers down to delivery vans. And so everybody sees them all over the place. Everybody gets the Amazon products delivered, and correspondingly, there are a significant number of Amazon crashes that are going on. I mean,
I
it's
wonder
just,
why that is.
eh, yeah. And so, the why that it is, that's really one of the things that we have now, started a litigation group that's been, really devoted to doing nothing but figuring out and handling Amazon cases from the delivery van up to, the tractor trailer cases. And they're very nuanced because Amazon at the end of the day, they want to say, hey, that's a independent contractor. We don't have anything to do with them. And it's really a lot of nonsense, but figuring out those different layers of Amazon and how they all connect and how Amazon controls or has the right to control really every aspect of the transportation cycle. It's important stuff. And especially in this area, one of the things that we want to make sure that we're doing from a teaching level is teaching lawyers across the country how to put these cases together the right way so that we don't have any bad law. And I think that that's really, that's really critical because, you don't want to get, some case from New Mexico, shoved down your throat, whenever you're handling an Amazon case in Pennsylvania or Delaware or New Jersey or whatever it may be. So yeah, we're going to do a day on Amazon. We're
So
going to do
is
a
New
deep dive on
Mexico
Amazon.
known for making bad law?
I'm just giving an example.
I'm just joking
Yeah,
with you.
giving it. Yeah, no,
Could have been
but
Alaska.
it's
Could have been Alabama.
it could have
You're like,
been
no,
could
Alabama's
have been
definitely no.
yeah,
Could have
could
been
have been
anywhere.
Pennsylvania. Who knows? But the idea is like I think the more information that we get out there, and the more people know about it, and then the more people ask questions about it, and we can give them good guidance, and then again it's they're ever evolving. Those cases, I mean, Amazon is their logistics system is so sophisticated, it's unbelievable. I mean, like literally what Amazon was doing 6 months ago is totally different now. And I'm sure by the time we get to Huntington Beach, there'll be probably 2 or 3 more variations. So it's really important to kind of stay ahead and stay on top of that that information.
I would imagine so. I mean, there's a lot going, and there's a reason why you're able to get stuff like an hour or two because they got the most amazing logistics system in the world. It
They
always
they
blows my
do they
mind,
do
like how they figure,
yeah
like Jeff Bezos figured all that shit out. So, because I'm listening to a book on audio right now about Elon Musk, and they talk about his competition for space with Jeff Bezos, and it's those guys. They're a lot smarter than the rest of us. That's all I can say. Thank God for them because they make our life so much better. That's all we can say is thank
in
God
many
for
respects.
the
Yes.
mad geniuses of the world. Even though I may have a few different political views than Elon these days, and maybe not crazy about some of the stuff he does, but can't disrespect his empire building though. That's
No,
for sure.
no,
That's for
no
sure.
doubt.
So you said you also do consulting. Is that as I only learned about that recently that you did that because I know Philip does a fair amount of that. But what kind of
Yeah,
consulting do you
Philip
do?
does it I do it very infrequently, and really it's for for some friends where they'll come in and they'll ask me to look at it's different than what Philip does. Like when Philip works with me, he'll be my consultant from day one on a case through verdict. Some of the consulting stuff that I do, people will call me and say, "Look, I'm really struggling with um, this aspect of my case, and can you take a look at this aspect, whatever it may be? Let's say it's their, say it's framing or sequencing, and we'll spend a day and kind of break that down." And it just kind of happened. I had a buddy, 2 years ago call me, and he was like really struggling with. It was a very complex broker shipper 4PL. There was all these moving parts. He said, "Man, I'm just really having a hard time. I have all like some really good testimony. I'm having a hard time figuring out and parsing out like the really important parts. And would you mind just coming and spending a day with me and trying to figure out what's really important, and what's not?" And so I said, "Yeah, no problem at all." And so, I did that, flew out, and we spent a day and a half, and then from there, I've had other people call me and say, "Look, I'm having a really hard time coming up with my approach on to this particular agency issue or whatever it may be. Can you come in and help with that?" And I'm like, "Sure," because I I mean, I have a very busy practice, so like I love being in the courtroom. I love litigating. I take probably, I don't know, 10 to 15 depositions a month. Sometimes. So helping out some of my friends on particular cases or issues. I don't mind doing that, but so that's my little I guess gig in the consulting world. Not something that, but don't advertise it. It's somebody calls me and they need some help on something. I'm happy to go do it.
Yeah, it's amazing, like all the different types of consulting there is. Like Philip doing, he does a whole different thing than like Sean Claggett does a lot of consulting with
Yeah.
different lawyers and, you know,
Yep.
all kinds of
Yep.
cases. I
John
mean, it's actually
Campbell. And
John Campbell.
yeah, worked with John a bunch. Working with John on a case right now. Really, big case, big multifaceted case. Working with Philip on a number of cases, right now. And I'm a firm believer in working with consultants. I mean, I've worked with Harry Plotkin, who's going to be out in Mardi Gras. Harry's an outstanding guy, as well. But I think that they see more styles and things that work and things that don't work than we do. We kind of get in our own little bubble sometimes. And so they're able to bring, the John Campbells or the Philip Millers or the Harry Plotkins or the Sean Claggetts in the world. They're able to bring this very diverse universe of information to you. And I love it. And I think that it's something that, lawyers who use trial consultants and listen to them and have a willingness to try different things or a willingness to change, which in my teaching capacity, I run into so many lawyers that every time I hear, "Well, I've been doing it this way for 30 years." Well, that doesn't mean you've been doing it right. And it doesn't mean that today is 30 years ago it might be right, not now. But so that's why, because people always ask me like, "Well, what do you use consultants for? How do you use consultants?" And I mean, I use them in all different capacities. All at various stages of a case, as well. And I'm firm believer in working with trial consultants on my cases.
Yeah, you bring a lot of insight and different perspectives to make you think about things differently, which is
Yeah.
always helpful. There's a lot going on in this trial lawyering world, a lot.
Yep.
And I
And
know
you got
you
to find one. You got to find the ones that you really trust too, because it's a relationship. And I mean, Philip and I have been doing it together for so long that I think I know when he's going to yell at me.
probably deserve it.
I probably deserve it, right? And like John Campbell, like I know, at this point, I kind of know what John's gonna like where he's gonna push me in a particular direction, which is great, right? But I think you have to find those individuals and develop those relationships so that there is that level of trust and respect. Because if you don't have that, then I don't think you'd be successful, utilizing a trial consultant.
That makes a lot of sense there. Makes a lot of sense. Now, Ed, you have a lot. I know you belong to the truck at the ATAA because I just saw, with a lot of great lawyers, and you've been doing this a while. So what? Let me ask you, what qualities or characteristics do you think the great trial lawyers have in common that that you roll with? The ones that you're like that,
Yeah,
what qualities?
you know, yeah, Dan, I actually I was thinking about this, last night, and especially like the people, the men and women that are kind of in my circle, right? And I think that one of the things that none of us have in common, which is, because they always say, what does everybody have in common? And I was like, okay, well, I do think that there's some things we have in common, but like, what don't we have in common, right? Which is interesting. Like, none of us ever talk about like where we went to law school. Like, it's weird because I've been around defense lawyers, you know, and that's all they talk about. I went to Harvard. I went to Yale. I went to whatever. Like none of us care. Like I don't care where, like Javon. I talk to Javon all the time, right? I don't know where he went to law school. Doesn't matter to me, right? Like it's interesting. Like the people that are in kind of like my orbit, like Christian Morris. She's one of the most fantastic lawyers that I know. Sean Claggett. I couldn't tell you where they went to law school or what their grades were in law school, but I could tell you what. I know Sean Claggett's gone and gotten a $485 million verdict, and we've talked about that case and how he's put it together. So when I say like, what is the common thing that of all of the people that I associate with, and I think a trait that is really critical for some of the top trial lawyers is a willingness to learn from others and a willingness to try different things, push the envelope, and fail, and be willing to fail because look, we cannot control the ultimate outcome. No matter how much we want to or think that we can't. But what we can control is that process. And that process, I think, when you look at really people that are at the top of this profession, whether it's a Joe Freed or a Satch Oliver or a Javon or a Sean Claggett or Christian Morris or Bob Simon or Brian Panish or any of these folks, I think one of the things that you see on all of them is a willingness to continue learning and continue to evolve. And I think that, like Rex, if I know Rex is unbelievable. Like that guy is just amazing. And I've had the opportunity to sit and talk with him, at some of the TLU events, and he's just a fountain of information. But one of the things that he's going to seminars, he's learning new concepts, and this is a guy that he doesn't, his body of work is amazing, right? But I think that is really one of the things that if you have that willingness to succeed or desire to succeed, then you also have to have a corresponding willingness to fail because you're trying new things and they may not always work, but you're going to learn, and you're going to continue to grow and evolve. And those are the things that, whenever we all get together, different from our defense brethren, like we're trying to figure out how to become better and make our cases better and make them better, make our, clients more successful. And so, which I think is a, pretty interesting, dichotomy between us and the defense bar. I think the other thing that is a common trait amongst, really some of the, top trial lawyers is they have figured out, what they love. And whether it's, whether it's being in the courtroom or perfecting, doing really well at depositions or being a consultant or whatever it is, and they've poured passion and energy into that. I think that when you find that, that's, you'll see that then the success will come, as opposed to, trying to be all things to all people. And I think that's something that, is just not, you don't see too many people who are, like Lloyd Bell is one of the greatest, best malpractice lawyers in the country. And, Lloyd's probably going to say, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to do a products case, because I I'm really good at this, and this is what I excel at. Like for myself, like, you know, I'm a really good, I think I'm a really good trucking lawyer. I think we understand it, and we put those cases together really well. But if somebody came, somebody came to me with a mass tort case or like a clergy abuse case or something like that, I just not me, right? And I think you have to, at some point, you have to recognize that you can't you can't be the guy who's going to play every position on a basketball court. Everybody's got a role. Everybody's got has a role to play and has a position, and you gotta get really good at doing those things.
Just gotta stay focused. That's
You
important.
do,
That's
you
for
do.
sure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you do. You gotta stay focused. And at the end of the day, you have to have a lot of empathy as well, because the people that are coming to us in their darkest moments of life. And so, if you can't recognize that, and also recognize that, um, for them, this litigation is part of their healing process in whatever capacity it is. I also don't think you're, going to be at the top of this profession if you're just looking at each case in a very transactional manner.
Yeah. Let me you Corey, I know Corey's your associate. How long has Corey been with you for?
Corey
Because you really
has
like raised
been with
Corey.
us. Yeah, I mean, Corey, how I met Corey, he was a witness in a catastrophic case. And a little funny story, I don't know if I've ever told you this, Dan. So Corey is the witness in the case, and he's 16, right? He's just fresh out, fresh driving. And ultimately, the defense files a motion to say that he's incompetent to testify as to the speed of another vehicle because he doesn't have all this, driving experience. And the judge granted it. The judge said, look, he can testify that he was going 65 miles an hour and that this car went by him like he was standing still, but he can't testify that he has an opinion that he thought that that car was going 110 miles an hour. We had independent evidence, from the reconstructionist on that issue. So it didn't really affect the outcome of the case. But fast forward, and that's how I meet Corey. And now fast forward, he's graduating law school. He's coming to work here with us, and I am his sponsor for admission to the bar. And so the judge who ruled that Corey was incompetent when he was 16 is now the president judge in Luzerne County. And so, packed courtroom, and we stand up, and I said, Judge, I'm moving for Corey's admission, but I also have to, have candor towards the tribunal right now. And he's looking at me like, what is it? What the hell does he mean? I said, well, you have previously ruled that Mr. Suda is incompetent. So now, I have to put that out there. Mr. Suda at one point in his life was incompetent. I no longer think he's incompetent. I think he's very competent. And the judge remembered exactly the case, and he gave a wonderful speech about Corey and his family. But I have an order to this day that says Corey Suda is incompetent. So anytime he really gets under my skin, I remind him that at one point he was very incompetent. But Corey's a prime example of what I hope the kind of the next generation of lawyers does, because he's just like a sponge in terms of learning, and his willingness to try things. He's gone out to your boot camp, out in Las Vegas, and he's loved that, and we encourage that, because years ago, people would say, hey, what is like one piece of advice that you would tell a younger lawyer? And you probably have said, heard this. Get in the courtroom. Get in the courtroom. Get in the courtroom as much as you possibly can. Just get in the courtroom. And then what happened? Then they're in a courtroom for 5 years, and they're getting their heads kicked in, and they're developing terrible
Terrible.
skills. Terrible. That now they have these terrible skills, or even worse, they get in and they have a modicum of success with these terrible skills. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, how do you unwind that? And so now, what people always, they say, like, what advice would you give? I said, here's the advice that I would give. I'll give you, Corey Suda is a young lawyer in my shop. I have sent him to everything possible. I've sent him to Dan's boot camp. He's gone to advanced deposition colleges. He's done immersions in learning skills the right way. And I think that now is far more important than just get in the courtroom and figure it out, because our profession is no longer just get in the courtroom and figure it out. There's too many things at stake. Clients' lives are at stake. Their families' lives are at stake. So now my advice is go to the TLUs. Immerse yourself in learning from people that have done it and are doing it and are pushing the envelope. Go to the boot camps, go to the deposition colleges, and then start to put, now you get this foundation, this really good foundation. Now put that into practice. Don't do it in reverse. And that's, I mean, how many times at your boot camps you're like, oh my God, what are you thinking? And they say to you, well, I've been doing this for 25 years. Well, no wonder you suck. I mean, like, let's figure it out. So that's one of the things now that we, really encourage our younger lawyers to do. And Corey is I think, a prime example, and something that I, whenever I, speak to law firms and they ask, what can we do with their younger lawyers, I encourage them to, send them to the Trial Lawyers University, send them to the Advanced Deposition College, send them to these other programs where they're going to learn skills-based concepts.
That's so critical because everybody, most conferences are just lecture based, and that's good to get the information, but people just keep getting more and more information without practicing skills and without getting up and presenting something, getting up and working on a deliberate skill, whether it's the skill of appropriate eye contact or controlling our facial expressions, because people's faces, most lawyers' faces are just neutral and robotic in court because they're so in their heads that they don't have natural emotions. Like when they say good morning to everybody, they have like good morning, everybody. Like, this is going to be a shitty day. Or like, ask a question like, does this make sense? But there's no rising inflection. There's no look of curiosity on their face. Like they're interested in the juror or the witness, whatever it may be, and that takes a lot. I mean, it takes reps, but like once people become aware of everything of all of the stuff that's going on, then you can start thinking about it. And frankly, my mentor, his name is Dave Clark. And I remember, meeting him back in like 2012 because we were at Jerry Spence's last trial out in Iowa. And we were sitting outside after voir dire, and he's like explaining to me some of the concepts. And I was like, because he studied Jerry for, probably 20 years at this point, because he was like part of the first trial lawyers college. And he's like, hey, show me a voir dire. So I demonstrated him my presumption of innocence voir dire because I only did criminal stuff back then. And he's like, does that shit work for you? I'm like, yeah, I've only lost like 2 cases out of the last 100. And he's like, do you have any idea why it works? I'm like, no. He's like, when you can make the unconscious conscious, then, you can be fucking dangerous. And then, in the civil world, we call that rich. Of course, I'm like, basically a very, struggling. I wasn't a public defender, but I got paid like a public defender. In fact, public defenders probably made more money because they had a steady paycheck. I was, as a criminal defense lawyer, you can't make money unless somebody has it, and most people that get in trouble don't have a lot of money because that's just how most of the world is. And so it was very challenging, but it's all about making the unconscious conscious is really what it's about. One last thing before we go. What's
Yeah.
your next trial? When you going to trial next, Mr. Trial Lawyer?
I got 2 trials in December. One is most likely going to go. I don't think it'll go to verdict. A lot of my cases, we gotta go through the paces. And I start a lot of trials, and then they'll settle midway through, or they'll settle sometimes during jury selection or whatever it may be. But I got 2 in December, 1 in January. The 1 in December should settle, within the next couple of weeks, because everything is kind of aligned on the defense side now. But the other one, we're gonna be in it for a couple of days for sure.
Well, good. When you get in it, when you get out of it, let me know, and
I will.
we could do a case analysis, and we could talk about what you learned. I just talked to my buddy
Absolutely.
Panish yesterday, because he's been in trial, because he's like been aching to get in the trial, because he's like, they keep settling, they keep paying me. I'm like, I know, it's such a burden, Brian. Ugh. But because like they were doing a focus group in Vegas, him and Spencer Lucas I've known for a long time, and I was hanging out with them a bit when they were doing it. It sounded like a pretty good case. The defense was only offering $200,000. It was this terrible sex abuse case for these men, and they got a $135 million verdict yesterday. That's
awesome. That's awesome.
That's a serious
awesome.
break. Now we got a good negotiating starting point. And Panish,
that's awesome.
That's a hell of a verdict, though. But he's such a great guy too. Besides being a hell of a lawyer, now he's coming out to Vegas. He's like, I go to Vegas tomorrow. I call him yesterday. He's like, I'm at In-N-Out. I'm celebrating. I'm like, I'd celebrate too.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's a great guy. Every time I've had the opportunity to hang out with him, man, he's just a terrific guy.
No, he is, and he's coming to. He couldn't make it to New York because he's like, I couldn't make it to New York, Ambrose. I'm trying to case. I'm like, okay, Brian. Okay, Panish. Well, don't screw up Huntington Beach in Vegas, because he's
right.
Because he's always like such a great host. Like when he's at conferences and stuff, he's always so he's always there's some people come in, they speak and they leave. Panish comes in, he hangs out, and he socializes with people because he's anyways. All right, Ciarimboli, I got to get on with my life here. I got Mass Torts Made Perfect in town here in Vegas over at the Bellagio, so I can go visit friends over there and hang out at the It's a good thing about living in Vegas. A lot of conferences come here. What a coincidence, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, who knew when I moved here there'd be like all these conferences here?
Yeah, this has been a pleasure. Thank you, Dan.
Hey, great seeing you. Great rapping, and I will see you soon. So in live.
Okay.
I'll see you next week
Yes,
at
sir.
Mardi Gras. It's gonna be dope.
I'll see you next week.
All right.
Ready to train with the Titans and set records with your verdicts? Register for our live conferences and boot camps at triallawyersuniversity.com. Start getting your reps in before the big event by going to tluondemand.com to gain instant access to live lectures, case analysis, and skills training videos from the trial lawyer champions you love and respect, as well as pleadings, transcripts, PowerPoints, and notes for a roadmap to victory. Join the group that continues to get extraordinary results. Trial Lawyers University. Produced and powered by LawPods.